The Rambling Geordie.
So anyone who's been watching the news recently will know that Rupert Lowe's been working on a certain independent R-word gang inquiry report. The reason I'm using the term R-word is because YouTube believes that we're all children and can't hear a word that sounds like grape. So you're going to have to forgive me for that one. It was crowd-funded, survivor-led hearings, which pulled together all the evidence from Rotherham, Telford, Rochdale and beyond. Now, listen, this isn't some government whitewash, okay? This is proper straight talking. And what it says, man, Jesus, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And more than that, it's enraging. I've summarised it for you. I suggest anyone who gets a chance goes out and reads it. I mean, it's over 200 pages long, but I suggest you do it because everyone needs to know what the hell's been going on in this country for the last, 70 years. That's how far back this thing goes. I know people just think it's like the last couple of years or whatever. No, it's 70 odd years. So buckle up, I'm going to summarise it all for you now. First thing I want to talk about is the actual scale of the issue. Now the report says at least 250,000, that's 250,000, mostly white British girls have been subjected to the R-word, gang R-worded, trafficked and tortured by these grooming gangs since the 1950s. Across 149 different districts in this country. That is nearly 40% of all local authorities. And that's a conservative estimate as well. Now, the real number is probably way higher because so many cases were covered up or never even reported. They're pulling numbers from the old inquiries. Rotherham alone was 1,400 girls. Telford over 1,000. Multiply that across the country and you get this industrial scale horror show. Girls as young as 11, sometimes younger. And who was doing it? Well, the report is crystal clear. It's predominantly Pakistani Muslim men. In the convictions they looked at, anywhere from 84 to 95% of the group-based offenders had Muslim or Pakistani names. That's 95%. Way above their share of the population. Now these weren't random sickos, these were organised networks. They'd groom vulnerable girls, often from care homes or troubled backgrounds, with booze, drugs and gifts. Then they'd pass them around like property, subjected to the R-word by dozens, sometimes hundreds of men. Drugged, beaten, filmed for blackmail. Some girls locked in dog cages, objects used on them, forced conversions, even marriages under Sharia. One testimony after another describing being subjected to the R-word by 600 to 700 men. It's absolutely sickening. Institutional failures. Well, but here's where it gets worse, right? The institutions that were supposed to protect these kids, they failed. Repeatedly, for decades. Police were calling these girls prostitutes and asking for it. They ignored reports, destroyed evidence, let the lads out on bail. Social services were putting kids back into the same houses where they were being subjected to the R-word. Councils, especially Labour-run ones in places like Rotherham, knew what was happening and did nothing. They were more worried about being called racist than stopping the R-word against little girls. NHS, schools, taxi licensing, same story. Everyone looking the other way because they were terrified of the racism accusation. Political correctness killed these kids' childhoods. That's what the report is saying. Now let's talk about blame, because the report really doesn't hold back. The perpetrators are obviously to blame first and foremost, of course they are. These grooming gang networks. But the enablers. The report puts huge responsibility on the Labour Party. It says they bear particular responsibility. Labour-dominated councils and MPs were getting briefed on this years ago, and they completely denied it or sat on their own hands. They cared more about keeping the Muslim vote than protecting working-class white girls. They suppressed ethnicity data, called anyone raising it far-right, and when they finally had to do something, they set up an inquiry with terms so narrow it couldn't even properly look at the cultural and religious drivers. Specific names get called out too. Sadiq Khan, surprise, surprise, denied grooming gangs involving the R-word existed in London. Jess Phillips and Naz Shah both stayed quiet on the ethnic patterns even though it was happening in their areas. And Andy Burnham, in Greater Manchester, he didn't even act decisively one bit, even back when Keir Starmer was DPP. The report criticises how thousands of suspected offenders were just given warnings instead of proper prosecutions. Imagine that. Instead of being prosecuted for R-wording however many girls, they just get a letter telling them not to do it again. It's not just Labour though. Previous governments, including the Tories, didn't do enough either. They all let political correctness and multiculturalism trump child safety. The report says the fear of losing votes from certain communities and being labelled racist let this carry on for years. So what does it actually recommend? Well, mandatory recording of ethnicity and religion in these cases, no more hiding the data, proper new laws with mandatory life sentences for the ringleaders, deportation for foreign offenders, better protection for whistleblowers, compensation for the victims. And Lowe says he's going to help survivors push for private prosecutions and civil cases. He's not letting this go. So, look, I've been banging on about this for a while now. Okay, the establishment has got blood on its hands. Thousands of girls, working class girls, were sacrificed on the altar of political correctness and vote grabbing. And now this report has laid it bare in black and white. 250,000 kids have been subjected to the R-word. Now let that sink in. If you've got kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, this should make your fucking blood boil. The truth's finally coming out, but only because people like Rupert Lowe and the survivors refuse to stay quiet. And I've got to say thank you to all of them for being able to speak up. What do you guys think? Is this report going to finally force proper action, or will they just try and bury it again? I think I know the answer, to be fair to you, but we can but hope. Leave your thoughts in the comments, guys. I know this is probably a lot to take in, and like I said, there's a lot more going on in this report. This is just me summarising it quickly for you. Let me know what you think. I always read the comments and try and reply as much as I can. But make sure you go out and read the report for yourself, and don't have any sharp instruments around you when you do.
Don't be daft, man.